So Ryan Johansen, for those who have not seen the story, because it broke like half an hour ago, I guess. The Flyers put out a tweet that Ryan Johansen is on unconditional waivers today for the purpose of terminating his contract due to a material breach. All of that is to say, yeah, bro, you ain't hurt. We just watched you play.
This is very clearly related to the injury stuff.
Obviously, they traded for him, and it was very much, at the deadline, like, we want that first round pick to come back for Sean Walker. How can we make that happen? We will take Ryan Johansen at $4 million. Nashville already covering the other $4 million.
Yeah.
Avalanche wanted to get rid of him. He sucked for like the last 50 games they played for him, and then he's here. And they kind of told us this was what was basically going to happen.
I feel like they explicitly told us that he wasn't going to play for the team, right? Like they explicitly said, we're not bringing him in this locker room.
Okay, so let's rewind.
Let's see if Charlie can sum it up better than me.
Let's rewind. So, yes, Ryan Johansen is included in the Sean Walker trade so that the Flyers can lock down a first-round pick. I do not think they would have gotten a first-round pick back for Sean Walker had they not taken back some sort of salary or something that further incentivize a team to give up a first. So that is why they took Ryan Johansen back. They never really wanted Ryan Johansen, and they made that abundantly clear in the immediate aftermath of the trade. I reported, I believe, that night or the night after. It's kind of in a whirlwind since this got announced, and I had to rush to the studio and get an article out. So apologies if some of my dates are a little bit off, but the gist of it is going to be right.
God damn it, Charlie.
I reported that the Flyers did not want Ryan Johansen in their locker room. Yes. They basically had negative views of his attitude, and they did not necessarily want him around their young players and in their culture, which they had worked so hard over the previous year, really the previous 2 years since John Tortorella took over, to build and to foster. So they didn't want it. But what they told him was that, look, we're waiving you. They waived him immediately, and not this kind of waivers, the waivers where you can then send a guy down to the minors. They waived him immediately, and they made it clear that they were planning to reassign him to the minors. They were going to get the $1.15 million worth of cap relief after they sent him to the minors. That was the plan. Ryan Johansen apparently, and this I believe was according to Elliot Friedman, apparently told the Flyers essentially that, look, I'm willing to play for you guys. He hadn't had the greatest relationship with John Tortorella because he played under him in Columbus for a year.
Was basically traded
before he got traded to Nashville. Like, was traded, I think, within the year. They just didn't click. And Johansson basically told the Flyers, like, look, whatever happened with Torts in the past, I'm willing to work through it. The Flyers, from my understanding, it was never a fear of Torts never being able to work with him. That was rumored. I don't think that was ever the driving force. Like, I'm sure John Tortorella didn't give him a ringing endorsement based on his interactions with him, however many years it was, 7-8 years before. I don't remember the exact numbers, haven't done the math. But I don't think it was Torts. I think it was the Flyers hadn't heard good things about Johansen and his impact on the room. There were more than scattered rumblings that he wasn't very popular in Colorado, and Colorado wanted him gone because he didn't fit there. Colorado obviously is a, very well-respected room in the league, given the fact that they've won a cup and they're run by Nathan McKinnon, who is like the hardest working, crazy captain in the world. So he didn't exactly come highly recommended, let's put it that way. So Johansson says to the Flyers, I'm willing to play for you. The Flyers are like, nah, sorry, we don't want you playing for us. We're sending you down to the minors. Like, we'll work to trade you. They tried to trade him while retaining salary before the trade deadline kicked in. They failed. No one wanted him. Even if the Flyers retained another $2 million to cut the cap it down to $2 million. So they were stuck with him. Then in the next few days, it comes out that Ryan Johansen is claiming he can't play. The report was that it was a hip injury. No one ever really went into specifics, but Johansson basically said, I cannot play, so I'm not reporting. The Flyers then could not actually send him down to the minors because you cannot demote an injured player. And that was that. Now, it was very fishy because the trade happened on March 6th, okay? Ryan Johansen played on March 4th. He then, at least according to Elliot Friedman, told the Flyers in the immediate aftermath of the trade, I am willing to work with you guys and I'm willing to report and play despite the issues with torts. I want to figure out a way to make this work. And the Flyers said, sorry, we don't want you. We're sending you down to the minors. And then immediately Ryan Johansen decides he's too injured to play. Now, I do not know for a fact that he lied, but the circumstantial evidence is a bit questionable in the sense that it would make sense if Ryan Johansen does not feel like going on buses in the minors and not living the NHL life and would rather say, and like, I'm not saying that he's not banged up. The thing is, everybody who is in their early 30s as an NHL player is dealing with nagging injuries.
Sure.
So Johansen, it would not shock me, decided that this hip injury I've been playing through all year, I don't want to play through it anymore if I'm going to have to be playing in the AHL versus the NHL for a potential cup contender. So he says he can't play. So they can't send him down. He ends up spending the rest of the year on the Flyers roster, just injured. At the end of the season, we asked Danny Briere about it in the end of season interview. He more or less said, we need to figure out if we can get him healthy. I don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you, I do not believe the Flyers ever had any intention, even if Ryan Johansen would have showed up in April and said, I'm healthy, they were never going to play. They were going to then, because they'd already waived him, they were just going to send him down to the minors, and that was what they were probably going to do this year. The complication here was that I think the plan, I really do believe this was the Flyers' plan when they got Johansen. The plan was, we are going to trade for you because we have to get a first-round pick. We are going to send you down to the minors. We are going to park you down there for the entirety of the year. Then we are going to buy you out. And we are going to take the hit because that's what they did with Cam Atkinson. We're going to take the hit for a couple years because we're not trying to compete these 2 years anyway. We're basically going to use the cap space. We're going to buy a first-round pick with the cap space that is going to take by having you bought out for 2 years. The problem is that you can't buy out an injured player. So that ended up not being a possibility because you are not allowed to buy out an injured player. Now, when I did some digging on this in June, because the buyout window is right before the start of free agency, it was the end of June. So I did some digging on this at the beginning of June. And the impression I got was that while the Flyers could have, in theory, challenged the validity of this injury, at that time, it didn't seem like they were particularly motivated to get lawyers involved because if Johansen is saying he's injured and the Flyers are claiming he's not, it is going to require them trying to get their own doctor to see the guy, them challenging the validity of the claim, everything like that, and then you're going to have lawyers and grievances and everything. In June, I did not get the sense the Flyers are interested in doing that. The Flyers are just going to be like, you know what? If he wants to say he's injured, we're not going to fight him too hard on this. We'll just have him sit on our cap for one more year and then wave goodbye at the end. Whatever. Clearly something changed over the last month or so because now they are terminating the deal. And according to Elliot Freeman and I believe Chris Johnson, Ryan Johansen is unsurprisingly going to file a grievance and there's going to be some sort of arbitration that's going to decide who is actually more in the right here. But what's intriguing to me about this more than anything is that in June, in the lead up to the buyout window, they were not willing to really make a fuss about this. Now they are making a fuss about this. And I guess if this works out for the Flyers and they end up getting this approved, it's better for them to terminate the deal rather than the buyout because of the buyout, they have 2 years worth of cap hits. If they successfully terminate the deal, the cap hit's gone. Then they have nothing on their books next year and certainly nothing beyond next year. Again, and we'll get into this a little bit later before I turn the floor back over to you guys because I know I've been talking for a while, if they come to some sort of settlement. And that I very much suspect might be in the cards here.
Which is what happened with Corey Perry.
It's also what happened with Mike Richards.
Oh, yeah. So my question is this, and I'm assuming this is not something you know the answer to yet, but given the fact that as you laid out here, they didn't think this was something they needed to do before, something happened that made them think they needed to do it now, could they be like gearing up to do something? Like, what do they need this cap space for?
Well, the benefit of doing this at any time is if they can find a way to dump the $4 million, they no longer have to worry about long-term injured reserve.
Okay.
Then they're under the cap. So, like, without having to do shenanigans in terms of dipping into LTIR, which they never wanted to do, Briere made that clear on multiple occasions in the lead up to free agency. So that could be all it is.
Okay.
They just don't want to tap an LTIR. That said, Kelly, It's the Flyers.
They do be doing stuff.
They're bonkers.
Yeah.
They want to be in the news.
The
They
best.
want to be the focus of everything. So can I rule out the possibility that this is not like that this is they're doing this in anticipation of making a big trade? I haven't heard anything, but it's the Flyers.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's yeah, they're about $830K over the cap right now, and that's with Ryan Ellis, not on
Not
Ellis
on.
Island.
And they don't
just
want,
on regular
they
IR.
don't want to put him on LTIR
And they don't
unless
want
have
to do that. They'd rather bank the cap space. They'd rather figure out the whole bonus thing. On the up and up, have all this year's expenses on this year's cap, because as we've said in the past, at a certain point, they are going to have to, I know you don't love the idea of signing free agents, but they are going to have to sign or trade for guys who make a considerable amount of money if this team is ever going to be better.
I like the idea of signing free agents. I just don't like the idea of signing $11 million free agents.
I know. I understand, Charlie. I'm just
Depends
saying
on who
they're
they
going to
are.
need this money at some point.
Agreed.
And they don't want to have to tap into LTIR and then have the bonus overages and then be like, all right, well, what the fuck is our situation
Exactly.
going into next summer?
They would just be kicking the can down the road continuously, and eventually they're going to have to pay up.
Not to mention any possible in-season moves complicated by the fact that you're only 800, or that right now you're $830K over the cap. You're going to have to LTIR someone to make it all work. This just uncomplicates it. That said, if I'm Ryan Johansen, and there's a million reasons for anything, I would report to camp, go to the Phantoms, get my money, and then in a month be like, my hip hurts.
Yeah. Play 3 games, fall down.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And
Can't play.
Again, like you just said, he has 905 regular season games under his belt. He's got another 67 playoff games. Anyone with close to 1,000 NHL games, you could probably find a doctor to be like, yeah,
sure.
man, you probably shouldn't be playing hockey because it's real bad for you. It's not as if playing
Exactly.
playing in the NHL is not good for you. It's violent, it's dangerous. He probably has something the matter with him, but so does anyone who's a professional hockey player. That's just part of the territory here. And it's can you not play? But to my understanding, and different contracts are different with signing bonuses, however they're laid out. Yeah, riding the bus sucks. As Alexei Kolosov has taught us, Allentown might not be the most exciting place in the world. I'm fairly certain, though, you make more if you're on an NHL contract because there's no escrow in the AHL. You actually, because this guy, the whole thing about not wanting to get bought out, he's like, no, I don't want 2/3 of my money. I want all my fucking money.
Yeah, right.
You get more of it if you report to the AHL. Now, if then he says I'm hurt and can't play, I don't know what happens then if the Flyers have to basically call him up to put him on LTIR. I don't know how any of that works, but I don't know. If he has designs on playing past what he's already played, because he just turned 32 at the end of July, he kind of has to be a good soldier. No, this is it. Nashville, Columbus gave up on him. Nashville gave up on him, retained 50%. Colorado was like, yeah, we'll give you a first for a couple of days of Sean Walker if you take this guy out of our room. And now the Flyers don't want him. In a vacuum, you can be like, oh, it's another guy with the Flyers. But nah, man, this is stop 5 for you.
So alternatively, because he knows that no one likes him because he's apparently an asshole,
that's fair.
he knows that this is the end of the
Get the
line. So
money.
he's like, I got to get all of my $8 million because this is it for me. So I'm going to just say that I'm hurt so I can collect my paycheck.
I mean, look, that's clearly what the Flyers are going to be contending.
Right. Yeah.
And again, the circumstantial evidence is fishy because this is a guy who was playing for Colorado every game in the lead up to
He played
the trade.
63 games last year.
And then suddenly is like, no, I can't play anymore. It very much strikes me as no, I don't feel like playing anymore.
Yes.
And perhaps if Johansson would have then said, okay, I feel better now, even in July, then maybe the Flyers have been like, okay. But, and again, this is all speculation.
Yeah, of course.
I have
yes.
had no time at all to do any digging whatsoever on this. I spent the entirety of my time after this got announced writing a write-up and then jumping in the car and rushing to the studio.
Charlie got here at 56 before the show.
So this is not coming from any.
Yeah.
I'm actually frustrated that I can't be texting sources and trying to figure out what's going on.
Feel
but
free when we're talking about the movie.
Got the job, so hey, that's what the deal is. I don't know, but presumably, if Johansen showed up to camp, they would have given him a chance. And then they probably would have sent him down to the minors, and then they would have cleared $1.15 million of the cap space and probably would have been cap compliant.
Yeah.
Maybe the Flyers finally realized that there's no way this guy's showing up for camp, nor will he let one of our doctors take a look at him. So it's a material breach time.
Yeah.
This is our only play. That very well could be it.
I mean, that seems like the logical thing that happened here. I don't really think it's any deeper than that, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a business move.
To me, because they're talking, like Elliot Friedman's report was like, this goes back to him not playing last year.
Well, of course it does.
Because
that's where it starts.
For him to be in material breach that they're claiming, the timing of this seems odd. That would be like, yeah, man, you don't show up to camp. That's material breach. But right now, it's like, yeah, I'll show up. Like maybe he will, maybe he won't. But
I would assume
there's no way to know that.
I would assume he's made it clear to
That
them at this point that he's not going to show up, that he is still injured, and that if you want to confirm that, tough shit. Like why else? Because if the Flyers would not be confident that they can win a material breach case if they've had their doctors look at him and their doctors agree that this guy is too hurt to play.
If he's refusing to take a physical, that's probably like, yeah, if I come to camp, the doctor's going to look at me and he's going to clear me, so I ain't coming.
Right.
Like that's a possibility. Again, this is all, we don't know, but you got to put some pieces together here, and that's what would make sense. This probably, like you said, ends with, it would be dope if they could just listen, I'm always pro player, but a certain point, yeah, man, this is stop 4 or 5 for you.
Yeah.
It's probably on you.
Get out of here.
It would be dope if they could just, yeah, you're terminated. See ya. It probably ends with the Mike Richards situation.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we have a settlement. You're
settlement.
going to get something.
Almost certainly.
A settlement would make sense. And it would make sense for the Flyers because if you think about it, as I laid out, I think their original intention was to send him to the minors and then buy him out. A settlement, in a lot of ways, might end up looking very similar to what a buyout would look like on the cap.
Question. I don't know if you can answer this. Just popped in my head. So we're splitting his cap hit with Nashville
correct.
right now. Let's say they come to some kind of agreement for $2 million. Is that $1 million from Nashville and $1 million from us? Or is it just, I don't know. Okay.
I know a buyout.
It was kind of,
A buyout would have hit Nashville hard.
I looked into this with Kevin Hayes because I thought St. Louis was going to buy him out. And it's like, if you're retaining salary and the team you traded to buys him out, you're on the hook for half of that.
Yeah.
It affects you the way it affects them, regardless of what you did. I don't know about a settlement.
The buyout would have hit Nashville hard. A settlement, like, number one, I have not had the time to go back and see how other settlements work. Secondly, I don't know if there's ever been a settlement with a player who before the settlement had salary retained by another team.
Yeah, it's a very specific thing. Yeah.
I just don't know if there's even a precedent for that. If there is, I'll find it. I don't know if there is. And if there's not, they might have to set a precedent with the settlement.
Okay.
This would be something, the NHL, like this will be the NHLPA supporting Johansen because the PA is obviously going to support the player.
That's what they're supposed to do.
It's the point of a union, and the Flyers will be making their case. But the NHL will be involved because in the end, the material breach is a material breach of the NHL's collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
So the NHL has to be involved in this.
Yeah, it's another one of those. We're going to have to learn a lot about some very
learning laws.
Very specific portions of the collective bargaining agreement, it seems like.
Yeah,
over
which
the
is
next
why
few weeks.
I don't want to get into like specifics because I haven't had the time to read and try to parse the relevant parts of the NHL CBA. It's all in legalese, so it's not like a very readable document.
It sucks.
You can do it, but it unless you're trained in law, which I am not, it's not fun. I assume it's not even fun if you are trained in law.
You got to be like Friedman and bring the CBA to the beach with you. You know,
is that what he does?
That's what Marek always used to joke
really?
he did on vacation was read the CBA on the beach.
We all silly like the mayor.